about the best song out there. But to tune in, y'all, to 94.1. Y'all tune in and have a good time with us today. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Reviving Mississippi. I'm your host, DeKeither Stamps. We got our co-host, Mr. Jason Clark. What's going on, JC?
Hey, how you doing, Commissioner? I'm doing pretty good, sir.
You doing good today?
Yes, I'm doing great.
Looking good, man.
Great week, a lot of meetings, but you know how it is. I'm ready, Commissioner.
Man, I want to start our show with I appreciate all y'all in the office. I sat back and I kind of surveyed stuff the last few weeks.
Yes, sir.
And this week, I have made sure I paid attention to everything. And I just want to say I got the best daggone. We've been blessed in the Central District, but nobody works for me. Everybody works for the district.
Yes.
And I appreciate everybody. And I've been there from sun up to sundown this week.
Yes, sir.
Checking on stuff, make sure everything's where it's supposed to be. And it's nothing like good people. And I just want to say, Mr. Clark and the whole Central District staff, I appreciate y'all.
Yes, sir.
As we begin every show, ladies and gentlemen, we start off by recognizing those people who are going through bereavement. And we got people going through bereavement. I mean, bereavement hurts. Tragedy hurts. And we say every week, you got to be a friend so you can have a friend during your time of need, because your time is coming. My heart go out to everybody who's going through bereavement. We got just tragedy everywhere. I mean, everywhere you turn, it's tragedy. But it's up to God and good people. Well, man, it's up to good people, but God gonna be God.
They say it again.
Okay, it's up to good people to allow the God in them to touch the God in everybody else, to help them through that critical moment of tragedy and bereavement. Reach out to them. Reach out, because my heart hurt just for when I see people in pain. And as much as we pay attention to football, and I'm not the one here to say football is not important. It's just not more important than people who are going through tragedy. Make sure you reach out to folks, lend a helping hand every way that you can. Our underwriters for today's show are Mr. Micheal Jordan, Micheal Jordan Transportation Service. You can go to www.mjstransportation1.com for your transportation needs. And if you want some good food versus fast food, I would suggest 90.1. Don't suggest nothing here. But I would suggest you go over to Dollar Street.
Come on.
You know exactly where it's been. Doing the same thing that I always done. I like that SuperBurger.
Come on now.
With the lemon pepper fry, with a super turkey burger with the lemon pepper fry. Mr. Clark, he's a veggie burger guy. I call it a whole garden between two pieces of bread. They don't pay me to ask you none of this. This is just a testimony.
It really is. It really is.
Right. This is a testimony of what my experience is. I ain't got to tell you what the name of the place is. Y'all know what I'm telling you.
They know exactly where.
Today, ladies and gentlemen, we have Supreme Court Justice Kitchens. Now, he was made famous because of a storied legal career. And on top of that, his wife did a commercial that said, "Can you get him out my kitchen?" Both with Jim Kitchens years ago. And he has been a friend of the show. It's not his first time on the show. He's been on several times over the course of the years. He's been a friend of WMPR 90.1, friend of Mr. Evers and the Evers family for years. And I just want to tell him, welcome to the show. And thanks for coming by and spending a little time. We got a few very specific questions. I'm going to ask you a couple of things that kind of pointed. But for those who don't know you, let the folks know who you are a little bit, and then we'll dive into it.
Well, thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate that warm welcome. I'm Jim Kitchens from Crystal Springs, Mississippi.
Copiah County,
That's
baby.
the whole story. I'm Jim Kitchens from Crystal Springs. Just an old country boy come to town.
Wonderful wife.
Absolutely the best in the world.
Wonderful wife. She is a jewel and family.
Thank you, sir.
And
my wife and your mother are very close friends.
Very close, very close. That's why it is, even before I got elected, we were always, in close proximity. You know, one thing about Crystal Springs is a special place.
Yes, indeed.
To me, it's part of the center of the universe.
I've never lived anywhere else. I got a nice plot picked out in the cemetery.
You ain't going nowhere.
Ain't going nowhere. Right there in the state.
Oh wow.
Those who don't know, tell the folks a little bit about the Supreme Court of Mississippi
Okay.
and how it functions.
Well, every state has a high court, the highest court in the state system. And we're not talking about the federal courts now. That's a parallel system. That's a different system altogether. But our state court system, which is our county courts, our circuit courts, chancery courts, justice courts, municipal courts, all those courts that are all over the state, they are under the tutelage and under the supervision of the Mississippi Supreme Court. It is the highest court. It is called a court of last resort in the state court system. So you think, well, that court doesn't have anything to do with me, but it does, because the decisions of the Supreme Court that are handed down typically once a week, those decisions are binding on all the other courts in the state, and they have to be followed and adhered to by all the courts. So it does affect you in your local community, and the law in the state is really crafted and shaped, not made. We don't legislate. The legislature does that. The legislature makes the law, but the Supreme Court interprets the law, and those interpretations apply throughout the state of Mississippi.
You know, the Supreme Court is a very interesting dynamic. Can you talk about the general makeup of the Supreme Court? How many members and so forth?
Well, the state Supreme Court, just like the U.S. Supreme Court, has 9 members. At that level, the judges are called justices, and the state is divided into 3 districts, with which you are very familiar, Commissioner, because you are elected from one of those districts.
Right.
The Supreme Court districts are the Northern, Central, and Southern districts, and the population is roughly equal in those districts. So the Central District has the fewest number of counties. We have 22 counties of the 82 in the state, because the population of the Jackson metropolitan area swells the population of the Central District, to where it doesn't take as many counties to make a district here as it would in the Northern or Southern District. So each district elects 3 justices. Of course, 3 times 3 is 9. You got 3 districts, 3 justices from each district, and those terms are staggered so they don't all run out at the same time. They are the longest terms in state government. Our terms are 8 years long. Same thing for our companion court up there, the other appellate court, which is the Court of Appeals. Those terms are 8 years as well. But we have in the state this year only 2 Supreme Court races that are contested. Now, there would have been 4 this year, but 2 of the Northern District justices who were up for election did not have an opponent. I have opponents here in the Central District, and Justice Beam down in the Southern District has 1 opponent. I have 4, she has 1. So I've got enough to go around for all of them.
That's right. That's right. So talk about, I'm going to ask you the hard question first.
Okay.
Well, it probably may not be hard for you. It's hard for me to explain. Caller called in a few minutes ago on the previous show and asked us about, we were talking about voting, disenfranchising crimes that don't allow people to vote, and how is it that President Trump is allowed to be on the ballot with certain crimes? Can you ask about like disenfranchising crimes versus crimes that are going through the whole process?
Well, the disenfranchising crimes are listed in the Constitution.
Okay.
And it would take a constitutional amendment to change them. And the constitutional amendment process has been very, very damaged in Mississippi by a case a year or two ago that really found those districts to be unconstitutional. The old congressional districts that comprised the districts contemplated by the referendum part of our Constitution. So we don't really have that anymore, except unless the legislature would start the ball rolling to reinstitute it.
Yeah.
But those crimes are not only in the Constitution, but they have been put into statutes by the legislature as well. And they come under a lot of criticism, and I think a lot of it is justified. Now, you know that I can't express an opinion on something that may come before the Supreme Court about whether I think we ought to do this, that, or the other, because that would be prejudging a case before it gets to me.
Mhm.
But I can tell you that it's probably very likely that in the immediate future, in the ensuing years, that we're going to see some court action concerning those crimes that disenfranchise people from voting. Some people in our state government seem to want to make it harder for people to vote. I would like to see it to be easier for people to vote and for more people to be able to vote than can vote now. We've seen a lot of change in that. I remember when it was very, very difficult for African Americans to vote. I remember when I started voting, I had to pay a poll tax, and anybody else did. That was one of the things that was intended to keep to suppress the black vote.
Mhm.
And then, I've always said, because I saw both of them happen, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 was a landmark, monumental, great thing for our country. But the next year, the Voting Rights Act was passed, and that did more for African Americans than probably at that time more than the Civil Rights Act actually did. Both are very important. I'm not trivializing one against the other, but I started practicing law pretty soon after those laws were passed. And two things had just started happening in Mississippi that really confounded the old lawyers. One was women were serving on the jury, and women, because women had been disenfranchised and prevented from serving on juries until along about the same time the Voting Rights Act was passed. Then the other thing, the really big deal another big deal, was that African Americans started voting in great numbers. In 1967, that was the first election year for governor, everything from governor on down to constable or coroner, lower officers, that African Americans voted in great numbers. So when African Americans became registered voters, that meant that they started serving on juries too, which was just a phenomenal change in our court system, because we've all heard stories about, and some of us have actually seen these all-white juries that were prevalent throughout the state, the norm rather than the exception. Every now and then, now you will see an all-white jury somewhere, or you'll see an all-black jury in some counties, and that's sort of the exception. But back in the late 60s, when African Americans first started voting in great numbers, the greatest numbers since the Reconstruction period after the Civil War, then we started seeing African Americans on juries in great numbers, and women too. So that really changed a lot of things in our court system.
Let me ask this question. Talk about some of the things that shaped your legal philosophy, the way you view law. What are some of your experiences that have guided you in your decision making?
I'll tell you the most phenomenal one of all of them, and this is a very personal thing. The day I registered to vote, I was a college student. Back then, you had to be 21 to vote. A few years later, it became 18. You had to be 21. My dad was a great believer in people voting and in everybody being treated the same, and he was a good man. But he insisted that I come home on my birthday, or as close as I could to my birthday, and get registered to vote in Copiah County. So I came home the weekend after I turned 21. I was down at Southern Miss in college, and I came home and I had my birth certificate with me because I knew I was going to register to vote. Went to the courthouse in Hazelhurst, and there was one old lady in the courthouse there in the circuit clerk's office who said, "I'm sorry, I can't register you to vote." And I said, "Why?" She said, "Well, the clerk is not here, and he is the only registrar of voters. You know, statutorily, he was the county registrar of voters, and he would not deputize anybody. This man was under federal court order that he had to register everybody that came in there who was qualified to vote. And he had campaigned the year before that. This is in 1964. And in 63, he had campaigned on a platform that I will not register any N-words to vote. That was his campaign promise. Then the Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals said, "Oh, yes, you will." So he played sick. He stayed at home. He would not come to the courthouse, and he would not deputize anybody to register people to vote. So I asked the lady, what can I do? I want to register to vote.
Right.
She said, "You need to get your daddy to call the circuit clerk tonight." And she gave me his home phone number. My dad was furious, but he did what he had to do. He called the circuit clerk, and this was a Friday, and the clerk said, "Have the boy meet me down at the courthouse in the morning at 6 o'clock. He said, tell him to come around to the back door." I went around to the back door the next month. Dad was furious. He said, "Son, this is bad, but you got to do this. Get registered to vote." Went down there, and here came the clerk, and he looked all around to make sure nobody could see him. He beckoned to me to come to the door. I went over there, and he unlocked the door and took me upstairs to the circuit clerk's office early in the morning and registered me to vote. And he was bragging the whole time about how smart he was keeping black people from registering to vote. That changed my whole viewpoint. That made me understand how bad it really was, and it made me mad, and it gives me chill bumps right now to talk about it.
You know, service here in Mississippi is a journey.
Yes.
I mean, it is a journey.
It is.
For those who may not know, let's recap a little bit. Let's talk about you know, your time, how long you've been on the Supreme Court, and some of the things you've done along the way on your journey.
Okay.
We don't talk enough about this. Let's talk about the man.
Well, I've served on the Supreme Court now. I'm at the end of my second term, and I'm seeking a third term. It has been an adventure. You know, I practiced law for over 40 years before I sought to be on the Supreme Court. So I think I had some very relevant experience along the way that, you know, representing Mississippi families with their problems. I see those same kinds of things now on the Supreme Court that I used to represent people for. And so when I see a case, I don't look at it just as an academic legal exercise, like I'm taking a law school exam or a bar exam or something like that. I see real people with real problems whose lives I am going to affect by my decision. So I take it very, very seriously. And I think most judges feel something of that same way. But I think it is just a very solemn thing. And I don't see anybody's color. I don't see anybody's race, anybody's religion. I try to treat everybody the same because I took an oath that I would do that. And I believe that's the right thing to do.
And that's all I've ever heard, that people have left your presence, felt like they hadn't gotten a fair deal. And some folks who have who provide legal services back in the day, they come back and say he was firm and he was fair.
Yeah, I appreciate
that. And I think that's all that you can really ask folks, to be firm and be fair.
Yeah.
And on behalf of that, talk a little bit about your family service. Down at Camp Kamasa is an amazing operation down there. And And I'm not just saying it's only your wife, but it's the whole community that galvanized together to produce something amazing. Talk a little bit about what Camp Kamasi is.
Well, this all started with one of our children had cancer back in the 1970s. And thank God he recovered. He's practicing law now and had 3 children. So that story ended well for our family. But, you know, he started going to something that he called cancer camp when he was a little boy. There was a camping program for children that were being treated for cancer or had recovered from cancer. And so our family got involved in that. I'm really abbreviating the story a lot. But Mary, my wife, realized that there was no camping facility in Mississippi that was handicap accessible, not only for cancer patients, but for children that had various other things, sickle cell, muscular dystrophy, various kinds of diseases, and not just children, but disabled adults. So she had a dream of building a camping facility that was unique in Mississippi and the best one anywhere. That's been her goal, to build a camping facility that is fully handicap accessible year-round for children and adults with all kinds of disabilities. And that's Camp Kamasa is the product of that. Kamasa is a Choctaw word that means perseverance or patience under pressure. And so she is going to open that camp in full next year. They had a pilot project this year with muscular dystrophy children. And so they found out some of the things they needed to change and some things they needed to do better. And so there are 2 buildings still under construction. By the way, this is a $30 million project. This is not any little thing. It's on over 400 acres of land in western Copiah County, in the wilderness, in a beautiful part of the world, on a beautiful creek, Turkey Creek, and where children and adults with disabilities can go starting next summer, and they can experience summer camp, winter camp, whenever they go out there, just like any other kid. And everything on that campsite is going to be accessible to everybody, no matter what their physical or mental condition may be. Whether they're blind, whether they're lame, whether they can't walk, or whatever their situation is, they will be welcome there and they will love it and enjoy it.
You know, I appreciate you coming on the show today. I know you got to leave at 6:30, but I just want to say thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for being a good mentor. And any parting words that you have for the folks of the Central District and of Mississippi?
Well, I think the people of the district know, in general, those that know, that I have worked very hard to do justice for the people of Mississippi on the Supreme Court. I have served you well. I have done my best. As my dad would say, that's all a mute can do. It's his best. But I have really worked at it. I am ready, willing, able to continue serving. I think I have a lot left to offer the people of Mississippi. I think I'm doing a good job, and I'd like to continue doing it on the Mississippi Supreme Court. So please, on November the 5th, remember Jim Kitchens for Christmas fund.
Well, I appreciate you, Jim.
Thank you, Commissioner. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir. All right, gentlemen.
Well, take care. And that's
Y'all
and what's your website? People want to go to your website, go to your Facebook. Just look him up
look me up.
Look him
Google me. Good night, gentlemen.
Take care, Judge. Ladies and gentlemen, Judge Jim Kitchens from Copiah County, and but he represents the whole state of Mississippi, specifically the Central District, and he's running for Supreme Court. Early voting starts pretty soon. Voter registration deadline, if you have not registered, is coming up. And if you need to re-register, there are more people who should be re-registering than who are. I'm just being honest now. There's more people out there who should be re-registering You re-register when you move. If your address for your voting is not the same address where you live, then that's a problem. You should vote where you live.
Why do you say that, Commissioner? If you got a little time to explain, why would you want to do that?
Why would you want to vote where you live?
This is an 11-year thing here.
We're gonna lay it out to you now. The reason you vote for where you live, first and foremost, the most important election that you're going to vote in are your local elections. Okay. Most times they're at the back of the page and the second page or something. But those are the most important ones because local elections affect your daily life more than federal elections. Now, federal elections are important, but local elections control your bus service, your garbage pickup, your streets, your water. All right. So local elections, to me, are more critical than federal elections. So that's why you should vote where you live, because you want to control the politics of where you live.
That's why I want to get to. I mean, I know we got someone scheduled for this evening, but I wanted to say that, how do you break that cycle? I'm from that mental cycle.
Well, if you still want, again, voting is for people who want to be free. If you want to be a slave, don't vote, don't participate. Because you're going to be subjected to the decisions of other people that you don't control.
I'm going to give you an example I'm talking about here. Let's say I have some people where I was managing, and they say, well, Jason, I got to go all back to the Delta to vote. All of it. Now, you live in, let's say you live in Richmond. But you live in Richmond. How come you haven't registered to vote? Well, I just like going back home, man.
Well, technically, let's just be technical here. All right. Technically, that's illegal. Okay? Just be technical here. You just want to be technical here. All right? You're supposed to vote where you live. Right? You're not supposed to live some over here and then vote over there.
I live in Ward 1, but I vote in Ward 4.
Right. You're supposed to vote where you live. So when you hear people saying things like the high number of illegal voters, well, that's just because when people look at the population of a town and the number of people who vote in the town, how can the population of the town be lower than the number of people who are voting in the town? Like some small towns, only to become the mayor, you only need a couple hundred votes. Right. Well, how is it that the population is 500, but you got 700 people voting?
Yeah.
Well, that's because you got people from who have moved away, who still affect the electorate in the area. So the point I'm trying to make is, you should vote where you live, and that should be how you maintain your voting process. I want to take a moment to expound on something, and this is critical. And y'all, turn your radio up, put your phone down for the rest of the show, y'all, because I'm going to explain something, and it's kind of been brought to light in the news lately, and it was involved in the news with a couple candidates over the last few years talking about support and leadership in Mississippi. And I brought it up on Ms. Singleton's show a few minutes ago, that leadership in Mississippi, specifically in the Black community, the best leadership, the best mentorship operates on an old African principle. And that principle is this: it's better to be asked up than told to sit down. Let me say it again. It's better to be asked up than told to sit down. Let me give you an example, personal to me. I can't talk about nobody else but DeKeither Stamps. Okay. All right. So I ain't talking about nobody else. I'm not talking about anybody else. I'm talking about DeKeither. All right. In my church, I was asked to be a trustee. I didn't go around saying, hey, I want to be a trustee, and then they did that. Because that same principle is you work and you serve, and then people give you varying levels of responsibility, and then you fulfill that role, and then you fulfill that role, and you move forward. That's how it works. Let me give you an analogy. Right? The best leaders operate under the butterfly effect. The butterfly effect in the butterfly leadership principle is this. A caterpillar is crawling on the ground. You rarely see caterpillars climbing all over the place. They crawl on the ground, crawl stuff. But when a caterpillar looks up and sees all these butterflies flying around, says, I want to be a butterfly one day. And that caterpillar turns and crawls up a tree, and then it goes way out on a limb. Let me say it again. The caterpillar crawls up a tree, goes way out on a limb, and then dangles himself and spins himself into a cocoon. A cocoon so tight that he has to fight his way out. And when he fights his way out that cocoon, that develops his muscles to be a butterfly. Now, if you crack that cocoon open early, that caterpillar will never become a butterfly and it will die. The best mentors and leaders of my life didn't help me. They asked me up, but they didn't help me. They sat and watched me fight and scratch and claw and develop my strength. So when I was, on the city council, they saw me scratching and clawing and fighting my way through it. They didn't just dive in and help. Now, good mentors will give me some advice here or there, but they wouldn't do it for me. Because they would put me in the cocoon process so that I can build my strength up. And then as people saw my service and saw work, they said, okay, well, you should be not only on the council, you should be the president of the council. And they saw me in that role. And then folks across the country saw me in that role, and President Obama put me on the transition team for the Obama-Trump transition, along with 18 other council presidents from around the country. And then folks saw me in that role just working now. I wasn't out there in the front. I'm just working, offering ideas up. And then they said, well, you should be the president of the National Black Caucus. So then I became a purview over mayors and council people all over the country. And then they saw me working, and they asked me up again. And they said, well, you should be, you're not a mayor. And they said, you will be a great mayor, but we're going to appoint you to the World Conference of Mayors to serve on the board of directors of mayors around the world. And I'm just doing the same thing I always do, working, serving, same thing I was taught in Morningside Missionary Baptist Church. All right, same thing now, same principles now. All right? And then folks back home said, well, hold on, maybe you shouldn't be on the city council no more. Maybe you should run for public service commission. I said, okay. We were unsuccessful in the first time. They said, that's okay, but you learned a lot. Okay. And I kept working. And then folks said, well, you should be in the legislature. And we worked through it, grew, we got to the legislature. Now, the same principles I was taught in Morningside Missionary Baptist Church. That's why I got the best church in the world. I don't care what you say. I got the best church family in the world. Because these principles now. So then in the legislature, people saw work. And then when the speaker, different party, different race. So you should be on the public utility committee because you work hard. The chair of the committee, he saw and he helped me learn, introduced me, gave me some things I didn't know and would not have known. Different party, different race. And then I took in what I learned in my community, and I took what I learned from other folks' community, and we put it together. And then I was asked up again because I was really comfortable in the legislature. I was rocking and rolling. And they said, well, you should give this public service commission another go. We think you'll be good at it. And then so I stepped out there, did that. Again, I'm continually being asked up, but prepared at the same time following through with discipline, hard work, and move forward. So then we were successful there. And then we were elected to the Public Service Commission. Then we've been working for a couple of months now. And the president of the National Association said, well, I want you to be on the water committee. And they appointed us to the water committee. Again, different party, different races, different folks. And we were on the water, we got appointed to be on the water committee for the federal government. And we've been working in that space. I say all this to say, to everyone who has ambitions to run for office, work with your senior leadership in your community and be asked of. Your personal ambition should never lead you to somewhere. And I'm not saying you shouldn't have them, but they should not be used as a fuel to base your service or ascension in service. Just like I learned at Morningstar Missionary Baptist Church, may the work I've done speak for me. And if you let the work you do speak for you, you won't have to do this whole popularity contest thing, because I've never had the money to operate. I don't make the money to do this stuff. I don't. But God and good people have been my formula. Let me just be honest, y'all. I ain't always been with God. But God always been with me. Let me say it again. I ain't always been with God. But God always been with me. And God be with you too, if your service is what is out front. So put your service forward, and then don't just run away from your elders. Run to your elders. If it wasn't for the Charlie Horns out there, if it wasn't for the Dr. Frank McCunes out there, if it wasn't for the Charles Everses out there, I didn't have the money for the show. And sometimes I don't have the money now.
Come on.
Okay.
Be transparent now.
But God and good people has been our formula in the whole process. So I'm giving you the blueprint, the roadmap, because Mississippi needs you. Right, to all my Gen Z and millennial and all the other folks, don't just think that because you put your name on a piece of paper that you are qualified. The law may say, yes, you are qualified. You have paid $10. Just because, don't take that word that say you are qualified to go, because these are serious matters, and the people don't need to be stoked up on something that's not serious. If your service isn't serious, then go serve under somebody and develop yourself. And then you can be taken seriously. You know, I've asked Mr. Clark to run for office.
You're right.
I have.
Many people in the community have.
And as well. And so what I'm saying is, it's better to serve and be asked of than to be told to sit down, because we're at a point now where I believe the people are going to tell some folks to sit down. Ms. Clark,
well, I mean, if we start off with the first reason we were talking about voting in the district you live in. It's a structure there too, with the precinct captain. Who actually, they should be able to tell who should be the next this and next that, because you're already performing and showing yourself already under that model, under that structure and leadership. Because this stuff you always say. So I'm not saying nothing, brand new, but to that you actually cut out a lot of foolishness, the dysfunctionalness, and you can get a more synergized, more constructive format here, where now you actually go into this system that I like I said, what I want to say, the system's not perfect.
That's right.
All right. And don't really, truly, you talking about running for office again, have some money to run for office. When you get in there, you may find out it's not even paying you either.
Right.
So and I'm saying that because you got to be a true servant.
That's right.
You got to be actually open to be a true vessel and let God actually lead you, navigate you, and I know what you're saying, that we need more, get out of the title, get out of that popularity crap. If you can, this is real hard work. This is, search for self type of work. You got to be able to work together across the aisle. Every ward, every district, every city, every community, they want the same thing: quality of life. What do you mean, Jason? Basic service being performed by the government, timely, efficiently, effectively.
That's it.
You hear what I'm saying?
This is not to make yourself famous.
No, or rich.
Or rich.
Okay, then. And when I say, so because you want those who come after you have a quality of life where the codes are enforced, where foolishness are I'm talking about, I'm saying, and I'm not, this is not all government. We're talking about more community-based stuff right now, what you're saying, Commissioner, things that we're supposed to be doing amongst ourselves, our neighborhoods, our streets. This is not nothing you're really going back to the church.
Again, I have not said anything about, and I am for people getting as much education as possible.
Oh, yeah.
We need people who can critically think and deep think. Do that. But in the service sector, your service must be rooted in historical context. That's what your service should be rooted in. And even right now, I'm going through a process personally right now where I thought I was working hard. And God sent me through a process that said you can do more. If you restructure this and restructure this and you restructure this and you delegate this and delegate this, then I can fulfill his will in a greater way with this life that he gave me.
Greater work you're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be performing greater work.
That's right.
I'm just gonna be
I'm giving a roadmap and some structure where we don't have structure. Service that's coming in the near future cannot be about who is the loudest person in the room.
Commissioner, we got a few minutes, but I think I like the hormone there. Commissioner, I don't say too much. Real nice, because this is real. This is life and death type of stuff. All this running for what? If you ain't got the skill set, the institutional knowledge, the commitment, the servitude for it, and you ain't shown that in the capacity that's needed, guess what? Start wasting all of our time. Step aside. I'm saying that because people are running off of egos, off of emotions. You make it look good. Okay, yeah. Get your butt in this seat. No, ain't nothing you want. But now you're stuck.
Right. When you're underdeveloped, and then the pressure is on you, you will self-medicate in sometimes unhealthy ways. And then that unhealthy self-medication will cause some very serious problems.
Or don't show up. You're supposed to be voting. So I'm only saying that because it's a tough question. The commission, we didn't have this thing about 11 years now. It's always been open.
That's right.
Right? It's an open forum. Every Wednesday, 6 to 7. One time it was on Thursday. We had on Thursday. So what I'm saying is, though, these calls ain't easy. They're direct to the point.
Y'all see, when Judge Kitchen came on, what was the first question I asked him? Tell me about this Trump thing and how can he vote?
Seriously.
Because that's what the people said. It wasn't because of me. The people want to know, how is it that somebody can be on the ballot with 34 felonies and a felon can't get a job application at this job? So let me make one more point for the shit back here. And the answer, like the judge said, is those aren't disenfranchising felonies.
Is that Constitution? I'm taking notes over here.
Right. So, and we listed this, but it's the same answer I gave y'all at the previous and Ms. Singleton's show earlier, that those things that he was convicted of are not disenfranchising felonies. It is a felony. But the 22 disenfranchising crimes in the state of Mississippi, I'm gonna list them for you right here. Arson, armed robbery, bigamy, bribery, embezzlement, extortion, felony bad check, felony shoplifting, forgery, larceny, murder, obtaining money or goods under false pretenses, perjury, rape, receiving stolen property, robbery, theft, timber larceny, unlawful taking of a motor vehicle, statutory rape, carjacking, and larceny under a lease or rental agreement. And so I just wanted to say what those are. But there are thousands of other felonies that you can have and still run for office. And it's up to the people to decide, do they need to.
But having once again, having people who are thoroughly prepared for their job, all right? Also informing your community, like you just did right there. Many people right now, I'll be honest with you, there's $1,000 given out right now. Nobody can list those 22 just being, no,
or they said, if you have a felony, can you vote? And the answer is yes.
Yeah. There you go. There you go.
Depending on which felony.
We just really need, Commissioner, what is what I was going to mention to you. Ward 4, going back to the city council day, one of the largest wards. I'm going to tell you how I feel, how I get mapped out, but I'll leave that alone. But I got 4 or 5 different regions of different people in that Ward 4. And you got to know how to talk to these people. You got to actually be with them 11, 12, 1 o'clock in the morning when they call you. Senior citizens I'm talking about. And sometimes you can't even do nothing. But are you going to be able to answer that phone when they call? Are you going to be able to sit there and really listen to them? All right, then. I mean, are you going to go out there and stop what you're doing and drive? I'm just saying it's more than what you guys think it is when people are up there at city council or on state. I'm just, it's
right.
And this is not monetary compensation at all. Is are you built for this? Have you show that stuff approved? No, so this is why Commissioner, I know when you asked me this stuff, but I know we need more people that's actually serious and qualified to actually step up. I prefer people who actually have a little military structure background to a certain degree. Most times you kind of understand what structure looks like. Just I'm not saying absolutely, but you understand that, and then you also willing to sacrifice. Because military folks don't get paid to make a lot of money. So I'm just putting it out the Commission, but this is the journey we are on right now. You always say what's ever quote unquote wrong with Mississippi, there's enough out there that's right with Mississippi. If it's wrong with Mississippi, something to that degree.
Let me put it on right. There's nothing wrong with Mississippi.
There you go.
That can't be fixed by what's right with Mississippi.
There you go.
Okay.
I mean, but it's a true statement. It's a very true statement. I'm going to say one thing. We had some guests here this past weekend. Central Entertainment, and I forgot the other gentleman's name.
Anthony Anderson.
Anthony Anderson. But this is what a lot of people didn't know. I had one of my guys actually special detailing around here. And he said, Central said, he came here a couple of times, 3 times. This time he got to drive around throughout the whole city. I'm talking about South Jackson, West Jackson, and it's all around. And he kept on saying, he said, man, yeah, we got some obstacles here for y'all. I got number of opportunities. And I keep on saying, I got all this out-of-state folks coming here to say this. We need to start, more collaboration and fixing what we can. It's actually obstacles, but it's opportunity too, though. So I just want to put that out there because it's refreshing to hear that always. And, hey, that makes you on the right track. Go ahead, Commissioner.
That's want to end up being important words, Judge.
No, not important words right now. We got a lot going on this here. A lot of things happening this weekend. But I want to make sure everybody, please be safe out there. Do check up on your loved ones. Even though the summer is quote unquote about to end, going to fall, but please check on the elderly and whatnot. Though it's still hot out there. It's gonna be a little hot this weekend. Leave you hydrated. I mean, I heard one guy. I had a guy at one of my former carriers today. Kind of had an incident because of dehydrated. But anything to check on the senior citizen and those disadvantaged people out there.
And go through the similar process. My parting words are this. Remember I told you a little earlier that God put me on a little self-assessment to see what can I do to be better, to maximize the fullness of my human potential. And assess your life. Ask the folks around you to give you some critique of how you can be better, how you can be a better you. Because as we work towards individually being better, then we stop competing with each other and start complimenting each other. Like I've never competed And Mr. Clark has never competed with me. I never competed with him. we see how we can complement. Sometimes he's in charge in this issue, sometimes I'm in charge. You know, so my point I'm trying to make is rebuild yourself and rebuild the village that's around you so that you can be the best you and your community can be the best community. Again, it's up to us. This is our community and it's our responsibility. Let me just answer this comment. I got to make this one comment before we go. Somebody asked me about J-Tran. Now, J-Tran is a very important piece of my life. My aunt, Marilyn Patricia Lockwood, she worked for Mississippi Blood Service for 35 years. And I don't believe she ever was late for work.
Okay.
35 years. That's how we built. My mom worked at the post office. It wasn't until the year she was finna retire. She said, look, let me call in sick to see what that feels like. I've been there 30 years. Okay? But my aunt doesn't own a car. She rides J-Tran everywhere she goes. And she's been doing it forever. So don't just think that J-Tran, you know, a lot of different kinds of people depend on J-Tran.
That's your heartbeat.
I'm not going to clap for someone for solving a problem that created that problem. We shouldn't clap for people for solving a problem that they created. It should never been happening in the first place. J-Tran is so important is that you got 15,000 people that ride J-Tran. Okay. Okay. So you're going to tell 15,000 people that they can get a ride to work. Now, most of them working jobs where they can't be late.
They're essential jobs.
And they barely holding on anyway. But then you got these other people who get money, like illegal immigrants, get money to do different things. And poor folks just trying to get around, get to work, get to the doctor, go back to the grocery store. Or even my auntie going back for Mississippi Blood Services. She lived in South Jackson, but y'all know Mississippi Blood Service over off Lake.
Come on.
Okay. On the bus. Tax paying, good paying job. Voter, can't get to work. Right? All over time.
Those are waitresses, commissioners. Those are your custodians. I mean, I'm talking. It's
essential workers.
They're really essential workers. But
so again,
that is sad.
I don't clap for the solution of a problem that should have never been a problem. Will we accept? Because if that was given to us by anybody else, you have marches in the street. Huh? It were white folks that shut the bus service down. And what would happen? Don't accept nothing from no people. Have a standard no matter what the race is. I have a standard in my life. I do not accept anything below my standard. And I don't care if you're white or black. If black folks keep accepting stuff that's below the standard, people gonna keep producing stuff below the standard. Have a standard in your life that what you gonna accept and what you ain't gonna accept. And it don't matter if I'm cool with everybody at City Hall, but I still tell them, here's the standard. You above it in some areas and you below it in some areas. And it's unacceptable. And I'm asking the community to do the same thing. But me and Kenneth Stokes ain't changing our standard. It just is what it is. Now, as we end up this show, Judge is chomping the bit. I'm gonna be 1 minute over, Judge. Please give me some grace and mercy. I want to say, please remember our underwriters for today's show, Mr. Michael Jordan Transportation Service, and Stamp SuperBurgers. But lastly, never let anybody put you in a position where you don't love your own people. Because when you hate your own folks, you're part of the very oppression we're trying to lift ourselves out of. I love you, Jackson. I love you, Mississippi. Handy, get us out of here.